Is taking place today in the trial of a Texarkana woman accused of killing a mother and cutting her unborn child.
We don't have this over our heads. We know where she's going to be. We know where she's at.
I'm grateful for the jury. I think their quick verdict was a testament to the strength of the case.
Former close friend of convicted killer Taylor Parker describes a heart-pounding encounter.
Earlier this month, and now the jury has to decide whether she gets the death penalty or life in prison. That Reagan Hancock's death and Taylor Parker's roadside birth were connected on the day of the murder.
Background of the case. In October 2020, Taylor Parker, also known as Taylor Morton or Taylor Way Casey, committed a heinous crime that shocked the community of New Boston, Texas. The victim, 21-year-old Reagan Simmons Hancock, was brutally slayed, and her unborn baby was forcibly removed from her womb. The crime unfolded when Parker, who had feigned a pregnancy to keep her boyfriend, meticulously planned and executed a horrific act. On the day of the slaying, she watched a video detailing the physical examination of a preterm infant delivered at 35 weeks. This suggested a disturbing level of premeditation. Reagan Simmons Hancock and Taylor Parker were acquaintances, with Parker having taken engagement and wedding photos for Reagan and her husband, Homer Hancock. The two women were somewhat friends, according to Hancock's testimony during the trial. On that fateful day, Parker lured Reagan to her home, where she committed the gruesome slaying. The crime scene was described vividly during the trial, with prosecutor Ller CRIES showing jurors a chilling photo of Reagan soaked in blood on the floor. CRIES emphasized the brutality of the act, stating that Reagan was not only subjected to having her baby forcibly removed, but also endured being slashed hundreds of times and beaten.
The woman was killed and her unborn baby abducted. Investigators shared the evidence in day 9 of the Taylor Parker murder.
Bloody and bruised Taylor Parker, taken by police on the day she allegedly killed Reagan Hancock.
Attorneys suggesting someone else might be responsible for the murder of a New Boston mother and her unborn baby.
That Reagan Hancock's death and Taylor Parker's roadside birth were connected on the day of the murder.
Day of testimony in the Taylor Parker capital murder trial as a jury learned how Reagan Hancock died.
Parker's defense attorney, Jeff Harrelson, acknowledged the severity of the crime, but urged the jury to consider the layers and shades of gray in people's lives. He argued that Parker, too, was a human being, and suggested that her friends and family had failed to provide the necessary support when they saw signs of her mental instability. The jury deliberated for less than an hour before convicting Parker of capital slaying by terror threat or other felony. Subsequently, during the sentencing phase, the jury had to decide between the demise penalty and life in prison without the possibility of parole. They concluded that Parker was likely to continue committing acts of violence, posing a threat to society, and there were no significant mitigating circumstances that warranted a life sentence. Reagan's family, including her sister Emily Simmons and mother Jessica Brooks, delivered emotional victim impact statements, expressing the profound impact of the crime on their lives. The court proceedings culminated in Taylor Parker being sentenced to demise by the Texas jury, marking the conclusion of a trial that exposed the horrifying details of a crime that shook the community to its core.
Is taking place today in the trial of a Texarkana woman accused of killing a mother and cutting her unborn child.
Connie Griffin was back on the stand today after she was interrupted yesterday due to a juror feeling ill. The special agent investigating the failed framing plot said it was an extremely complicated and sophisticated scheme. Reagan Hancock was brutally slashed, stabbed, and beaten, but evidence shown to the jury today showed Parker knew no one at the clinic would be able to out her because of patient privacy laws.
Demise sentence for fetal abduction. The jury deliberated for just over an hour before returning with the demise sentence. The case involved the brutal slaying of Simmons Hancock, whose unborn daughter was cut from her womb and did not survive. The victim's mother, Jessica Brooks, addressed Parker in a statement to the court, referring to her as an evil piece of flesh demon. She recounted the horrifying details, stating, "My baby was alive, still fighting for her babies, when you tore her open and ripped her baby from her stomach." After hearing victim impact statements, Judge John Tidwell ordered Parker to be taken to Demise Row. Simmons Hancock's lifeless body was discovered on October 9, 2020, at her residence in New Boston, Texas. The small city, with a population of about 4,600, is located 160 miles northeast of Dallas. At the time of the slaying, Simmons Hancock's 3-year-old daughter was present in the home. On the same morning, Parker was stopped by a state trooper for speeding and erratic driving. She claimed to have just given birth, and the baby, Braxlyn Sage Hancock, was taken to an Oklahoma hospital where she was pronounced lifeless. Prosecutors revealed during the trial that Parker had deceived everyone, including her boyfriend, by feigning pregnancy. She went to great lengths to create a false narrative, using fake ultrasounds and even organizing a gender reveal party. The disturbing case underscores the premeditated and chilling nature of Parker's actions, leading to a tragic loss of a young mother and her unborn child. Taylor Parker's trial. During the trial, the prosecution presented compelling evidence outlining Taylor Parker's premeditated actions and the gruesome details of the crime. A state police investigator revealed that Parker had extensively researched methods to convincingly fake a pregnancy. Homer Hancock, the victim's husband, testified that Parker and his wife had a somewhat friendly relationship, with Parker even taking their engagement and wedding photos. This information highlighted the disturbing nature of Parker's betrayal. In the closing statements, prosecutor Kelly Crisp aimed to emphasize the brutality of the crime. She showed the jury a crime scene photo of Reagan Simmons Hancock covered in blood on the floor.
We don't have this over our heads. We know where she's going to be. We know where she's at.
They went through the evidence and the law and felt that they had plenty of information.
The verdict comes after a 2-month trial in Bowie County. It is our top story.
I'm grateful for the jury. I think their quick verdict was a testament to the strength of the case.
Taylor Parker's family were in the courtroom today.
Crisp argued that Parker deserved the demise penalty, emphasizing the danger she posed. The prosecution revealed that, in addition to forcibly removing the unborn child, Simmons Hancock had been subjected to hundreds of slashes and beatings. Parker's defense attorney, Jeff Harrelson, countered by appealing to the jury's empathy. He acknowledged the heinous nature of the crime, but urged the jury to consider Parker's humanity. He argued that Parker lacked a support system, claiming that her friends and family failed to address the signs of her deteriorating mental state during the fake pregnancy. In essence, the trial showcased a stark contrast between the prosecution's portrayal of Parker as a dangerous and merciless criminal and the defense's attempt to humanize her, emphasizing the lack of support that may have contributed to her actions. The jury was left to weigh these arguments and ultimately decided to sentence Taylor Parker to demise after just over an hour of deliberation. Twisted motive, brutal act. The sentencing of Taylor Parker, formerly known as Taylor Morton, and Taylor Way Casey, marked the culmination of a trial that exposed the extreme and disturbing facts surrounding the heinous crime she committed. Convicted of capital slaying by terror threat or other felony, Parker faced the possibility of either the demise penalty or life in prison without parole. During the trial, the jury, consisting of 6 men and 6 women, deliberated for a brief period before reaching a guilty verdict. The conviction triggered a sentencing phase where jurors had to consider 2 critical issues. First, they determined that Parker was likely to continue committing acts of violence, posing a threat to society. Second, they found no significant mitigating circumstances in Parker's background that would warrant a life sentence instead of the demise penalty. Victim impact statements from Reagan Simmons Hancock's family members, including her sister Emily Simmons and mother Jessica Brooks, provided an emotional backdrop to the sentencing proceedings.
Former close friend of convicted killer Taylor Parker describes a heart-pounding encounter.
Earlier this month, and now the jury has to decide whether she gets the death penalty or life in prison.
Phase of the Taylor Parker capital murder and kidnapping trial in New Boston about a plot to frame others.
Guilty of capital murder. Now the jury will decide whether or not Taylor Parker will receive the death penalty.
Emily Simmons expressed the profound loss she felt, revealing that she would carry a picture of Reagan down the aisle at her wedding since her sister wouldn't be there to act as the maid of honor. Jessica Brooks directly addressed Parker, calling her an evil piece of flesh demon, and highlighting that Reagan was one of the few people who cared about her. First Assistant District Attorney Kelly Crisp recapped the gruesome slaying scene during her closing statement, emphasizing the torture Reagan endured while fighting for her child. Crisp argued that the extreme circumstances surrounding Reagan's demise warranted the demise penalty, emphasizing that mercy should be reserved for those who understand and acknowledge their actions. The crime itself unfolded in October 2020, when Parker, driven by a twisted motive to steal Reagan's baby, meticulously planned and executed a horrifying act. The investigation revealed that Reagan was found deceased at her home in New Boston, Texas, with her 34-week-old unborn baby forcibly removed from her womb. The crime scene depicted a horrific scene with abundant blood throughout the house. The details of the autopsy and forensic analysis painted a chilling picture of the brutality inflicted on Reagan. More than 100 knife wounds, defensive wounds on her hands, a fractured skull in 5 different places from a hammer, and beatings with a jar filled with wedding sand were among the horrifying injuries. Parker, armed with a scalpel, had sliced Reagan from hip to hip, pulled out her uterus, and inflicted unspeakable violence. Further complicating the tragedy was the discovery that Parker had presented herself to authorities as the mother of a newborn when stopped by a state trooper. The infant, supposedly Parker's, was found with the umbilical cord connected, but subsequent investigation revealed that Parker had not given birth to the child. The sinister nature of the crime was underscored by Parker's elaborate deception, including faking a pregnancy to keep her boyfriend. In the final decision, Taylor Parker was formally sentenced to demise by Judge John Tidwell. The judge stated that she had been found guilty of capital slaying and, in accordance with Texas law, was punished with the demise penalty. He formally declared the sentence, instructing, "Take her to Demise Row." The sentencing marked the conclusion of a trial that exposed the darkest depths of criminality, leaving a community grappling with the profound loss and brutality inflicted by Taylor Parker. That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.